Presiding Officer, I would normally start by saying I'm pleased to speak on a subject, but today that's not really the case. This is for many reasons, but none more so than the complete injustice faced by WASPI women in Scotland and the rest of the UK at the hand of successive UK Tory and Labour governments. I've met many WASPI women across Dumfries and Galloway and the Scottish borders. Many of these have been scammed out of the pension that they ought by right to have and which were led to believe that they would receive. I do, however, want to thank all of the WASPI women, including in Dumfries and Galloway and the borders, for their tenacity in standing up to the UK Government and in continuing to campaign for justice. Like others, I welcome the WASPI women to the gallery today, and following the UK Government's shocking decision to ignore the Ombudsman's recommendations and refuse compensation, WASPI campaigners have simply redoubled their efforts. WASPI women are spreading information through their local networks, appearing in local and national media, staging protests and events, and lobbying politicians. They are certainly not taking this decision lying down, as they certainly shouldn't. The message on the placards outside Parliament were clear: no notice, no letter, no pension. And I know myself and my colleagues will do all we can to support these women in the efforts in the face of a two-faced Labour government. Presiding Officer, it has now been 30 years this year when the events that we're discussing today were set in motion with the 1995 Pensions Act. That was before this Parliament even existed. WASPI women had been told, appallingly by the Prime Minister, Chancellor and media, not to mention numerous shameful Labour MPs, that they will not be compensated because, and I quote, most 1950s women born knew the state pension age was increasing. And, Presiding Officer, this is entirely inaccurate. The statistic which is being bandied around is from a 2006 survey, that's 18 years ago, and actually refers to a general awareness across the population about changes to the state pension age in the future. The survey did not ask if people knew about the specific impact of state pension ages to them as individuals. And to add further insult, only around 5% of the survey respondents were 1950s-born WASPI women. Let me be crystal clear about this. The Department of Work and Pensions knew that a huge cohort of 1950s-born women were unaware of changes to their pensions, agreed internally that they should write to them. So the DWP agreed internally that they would write to the women and agreed that doing so would make a difference. These were the conclusions of a thorough and independent review by the Ombudsman, and it's exactly why the Ombudsman ruled that this was a clear case of maladministration. So to try and rewrite or deny the history is appalling. Presiding Officer, as many as 3.8 million women were given the news that their state pension age was going to increase from 60 to 66, just as they were about to retire. Too late to do any proper financial planning. It's estimated that well over 300,000 women in Scotland were impacted by the WASPI pension scandal. Many were already in ill health or worse, and others had taken early retirement and were planning to get by until the age of 60, when they thought they would receive their state pension. While the UK Government delays in the hope that WASPI women will just go away, the campaign for justice continues. But as many as 40,000 women are dying each year without getting any form of compensation. This is absolutely shameful. Across Dumfries and Galloway, in the last session of Parliament, I held several WASPI engagement events for WASPI women. I was supported by the fantastic older persons champion from the Scottish Borders Council, Councillor Elaine Thornton-Nicholl, as well as being supported by a local Dumfries resident and WASPI and pensions campaigner, Anne Ferguson, MBE. Both should be thanked for their dedication to pension equality and for their support of WASPI. And indeed, many colleagues, including Claire Haughey and Christine Graham, should also be thanked for their campaigning. And of course, I was in the debate last week when Kenneth Gibson spoke and led the debate, although I didn't speak in that debate last week. Following these events, and even just in the last few days, my office has been in contact with local WASPI women. The one thing they say is how shocking it is Labour MPs, then in opposition, could stand with placards with the WASPI women calling for justice to now defend their Labour bosses and throw WASPI women out in the cold. It is galling and shows the true heart of the Labour members. After so many public commitments, the Labour UK Government's position is utterly indefensible. The question for Scottish Labour MPs is this: will they do the right thing and stand up for older people in Scotland, or will they stand up for a pledge-breaking Prime Minister? My WASPI women constituents don't have much hope, but, Presiding Officer, in closing, the UK Government must reverse its decision. It must accept the Ombudsman's findings in full and provide the compensation to WASPI women urgently. Thank you, Presiding Officer.